Granted, that was Newton's third law of motion, but it applies pretty much everywhere. We have the Enlightenment, which is reason, thinking, then the reaction to that, Romanticism, which is embracing the common man. Screw reasoning, do what you think, what seems right. And then the Victorian, which questions everything, which is more or less, Darwin's Descent of Man came out, and then there was communism. It's just questioning society. And then next we have realism, which is the opposite of everything. We don't question, we don't reason, we don't romanticize. It's just, this is what it is. This is real. And then came along World War II, which brought on modernism. Modernism started, you could argue that it started as early as the late 1800s, but it didn't take off until later on, particularly aided by World War II. And it spanned all the arts. It wasn't just literature. We're looking, of course, at literature. This is a literature class, but poetry, drama, music, painting, sculpting, whatever, it all changed at the same time. When people look for a change, they look to the arts first. All right, here's our story. Ladies and gentlemen, The Gas Chamber by Tadeusz Borowski. He is a Polish Jew, a Holocaust survivor. And this, ladies and gentlemen, The Gas Chamber is actually taken from a larger work, Farewell to Maria, who is his fiancée at the time of the war. He was lucky enough, he was in Warsaw, Poland. We've all been in history class, we've all seen our documentaries. Warsaw, the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, they burned the ghetto and all the Jews in it. But he was lucky enough to have written Farewell to the Earth 2 months beforehand, which was poetry for a Jew in German-controlled Poland. No, he got sent to jail. Even though he only sent off 65 copies, it was enough to convict him. So he was, but he solved the whole Warsaw thing from his jail cell, and then he got sent to Auschwitz with the rest of the survivors, specifically Birkenau, which is the largest concentration camp there at Auschwitz. He survived by becoming an orderly at Auschwitz Hospital. When I say the Auschwitz Hospital, it's not the typical kind of hospital, because you don't go to the concentration camp to get well. It's the experiment kind of hospital. And he committed suicide at age 29. That was, ironically, after the war, considered a good way after the war. After the war, he got out. Both he and Maria survived. They married, and he became a prominent writer in Russia-controlled Poland. They started another concentration camp for political prisoners, and he was one of the administrators of intelligence there. He saw that they were doing the exact same thing, and he was in the exact same system he left. It got to him, he committed suicide. All right. This story deals with how far humans will go for self-preservation. He makes himself useful at the train station to avoid any gas. His job is to unload bodies, collect goods, and stockpile food. Now, Canada, that's the name of the dock, the loading dock at the train station. And it's a play, it's comedy after his sort. It's his sort of comedy. It's not funny, most of us won't laugh at it, but it's comedy meant to draw the opposite reaction. Like we see how he makes light of something by calling it Canada because it represents prosperity and plenty for them. He makes light of it, that makes us say, oh, how can he be so relaxed, how so calm? And it kind of brings on the seriousness of what happened. It's his technique. There's the train station where he worked at Auschwitz, entrance. And the whole thing, it is sort of a comedy. He satires what went on. Here he's satiring the German high command, how they come, they're civil to each other, they're polite, they greet each other, they trade stories, they trade photographs. They greeted one another in a stately fashion, the arm outstretched in the Roman manner. Then cordially shaking hands, they smiled warmly at one another, talked about letters, news from home, their children. They showed one another photographs. Then there's a paragraph where they strut around for a while in the compound, and then the train pulls up. Water, air, rose the dull, despairing shrieks. Human faces leaned out the window, mouths desperately gasped for air. Having drawn a few gulps of air, the people left the windows, and others stormed their places and also disappeared. The screams and rattling grew louder and louder. A man in a green uniform, more bespangled with silver than that of the others, frowned with disgust. He puffed his cigarette and threw it away with a sudden motion, transferred his briefcase from his right hand to his left, and beckoned to a guard. The latter slowly removed his automatic from his shoulder, took aim, and fired around at the railway cars. Back to work unloading dead bodies. So that was his satire of how they could be so civil and then yet so cruel at the same time. And that's how the Nazi High Command intended it. They dehumanized his prisoners. They made them animals, so that the soldiers could live with it. It's hard to kill human beings. It's easy to slaughter cattle. So they dehumanized them. Here's another one. Here's a woman walking quickly, hurrying, imperceptibly but feverishly. A small child, only a few years old, the rosy, chubby face of a cherub, runs after her. It cannot catch up with her and hold out its little arms, crying, "Mommy, Mommy." "You woman, pick up that child." "It isn't mine, sir, it isn't mine," the woman shouts hysterically, and covering her face with her hands, runs away. She wants to hide. She wants to catch up with the other women. Who will not go by truck? Who will walk? Who will live? She is young, healthy, and pretty. She wants to live. And there's 2 more paragraphs where a drunk sailor runs after her, catches her, and throws her in the truck and throws the child in behind her, yelling at her the whole time. "That's how unnatural mothers should be punished," said the SS man who stood by the truck. And I kind of got a kick out of that. How can this SS man call her an unnatural mother after the way he's killing 50 million Jews? Well, 50,000.
What's the meaning of unnatural in that?
It's the process of dehumanizing. The Nazis knew this would happen. She wants to live, right? So she's abandoning her child. And he's saying that's unnatural. They're dehumanizing and making them easier to kill, easier because you can look down on someone like this, someone who's so immoral to run away from their child. So that's the point of dehumanizing. Because the Nazis knew that it's only human to project weakness onto someone weaker. If you have siblings, you know what I'm talking about. My older brother picks on me, I pick on my younger brother. That's how it works. If your boss is having a bad day at work, you're going to have a bad day at work. If your wife's on a period, leave the house. But Borowski himself expresses contempt and detachment from the other prisoners. That's his technique throughout the story, is to be above it all, to detach himself. There's one place at the beginning where he talks about the Greeks, the dirty Greeks. They're rattered, tattered clothing, dirty, they're shifty eyes, they won't look at anybody in the eye, they avoid heavy labor, and they're scratching around for a few pieces of bread, and he's sitting up on the platform with Henry. He says, what pigs? Don't they know there's going to be a train in just a little bit? They'll have all they want to eat. It's part of the detachment, just becoming a cog in the machine to survive. And it's that attitude that ultimately drove him to suicide. He couldn't take it anymore. Another story. Today I was just cleaning out a train car of dead babies because the babies don't survive. They don't get enough oxygen. They're not strong enough. And he's supposed to clean them out, give the dead babies to the women. The women take them to the crematorium. They're all buried together. That's how it's supposed to work. Well, on one occasion, the truck left. The women were no longer there, so he's standing alone with this fistful of dead babies. So that means he's got to go to the crematorium. He's going to die. "What's that? You don't want them then?" the pockmarked SS man asked as though surprised and reproachful, and starts to ready his revolver. "No need to shoot. I'll take them." The gray-haired lady took the infants from me, and for a while looked straight into my eyes. "You poor child," she whispered, smiling. Stumbling on the ground, she walked away. And that's why I entitled this slide "Except After C," because it's the exception to the rule. There were some people. And it's that event that ultimately inspired him to ask this question. Look here, Henry, are we good people? Because the Nazis had won. They had defeated him. He was no longer human. Or he at least suspended his humanity temporarily. To me, that's the climactic moment of the story. There's no climax. It's just a list of this happened, this happened, this happened. But to me, that's the climactic question. That's the question of the story, what it's answering. All right. This whole thing is natural ultra-realism. This is what happened. They don't romanticize it. They don't question it. They don't reason about it. It's just, and this is characteristic of most wartime works because they just told what happened during the war. And it was depressing, of course. Europe's destroyed. The world's short of 50 million people. 2 countries have nuclear warheads, and they're just dying to use them. It's a tense time, and it set up modernism because people don't want to read this depressing realism. It spawned Dada, which we talked about, just chaos, activism, surrealism, theater of the absurd, theater of cruelty. Or in painting, abstract expressionism, which is it's just surreal. It's not reality. It's off on your own thing. Reaction, reaction, reaction to the harsh reality. It's, of course, the biggest one's the nuclear threat. That spawned a lot of anxiety. We came close to nuclear wars a couple of times, the Bay of Pigs, or the Berlin airlift lasted 11 months. The whole world's on its toes because once one of them starts firing, the world's gone. There's nothing you can really do about it. Of course, there's a lack of faith, which influenced the art and literature. People ask why would God let something like this happen? And particularly in Europe. America wasn't so bad. America was fine. America had the better end of the deal. We didn't lose too many people. Our homes weren't touched. Soldiers came home with plenty of money, and people still had jobs at home. They just didn't have anything to spend it on because all the goods were going overseas, right? So they come home and with plenty of money, ready to start a family, and there's government grants for houses. Started consumer lifestyles, buying, and suburban lifestyles, moving off. All these Luddites, or Levittows. People just come in, make these assembly line houses, just punch them together in 2 days. Bring in 4 walls and a roof, ta-da, you're done. Baby boom, definitely had a big impact. A civil rights movement, it became an impact before World War II, but definitely after, leading up to the civil rights movement. World War II and its aftermath left the world in a depressed, terrified state. People looked to the arts as the first place to hide from their troubles. The world was ripe for breaking away with modernism, which I think is what we'll be on next. Ta-da!